What up, Dominic?
Hey, Jenna.
It's like nothing has happened and everything has happened.
Oh, everything's been going on. Yeah, it's honestly, I feel like I've over the past couple of weeks, or 2, 3 weeks, it's like three different timelines. I feel like I'm in a Marvel universe right now. It's
Can
like,
I
which
just say
timeline are we in?
the simple fact that you were just like, was it 2 weeks or 3 weeks? I
I
don't know.
don't
Maybe it's
know.
been the past 3 years, whatever it
Maybe three
is.
years, yeah.
But that's how I feel too.
Different timelines. We are all living in a Marvel universe.
Oh my God. It actually, yeah, yeah, I 100% agree with that because there was
I,
like a mass destruction, a battle of like superpowers, and like we're just the civilians, just like, so do we just live in the rubble? What do we
I
do?
I need to figure out what timeline I want to go back in. Where
God.
do we jump back in, Jenna? Where do we
Oh
jump
my
back in?
God. I wish we had that power. All right,
I
well,
know.
let's start the show. Hi, I'm Jenna,
And I'm Dom, and we're both award winning journalists.
who've recently been laid off.
Our industry is experiencing a seismic shift, and it's shed a lot of really good journalists.
So, where does that leave us? Well, we're definitely laid off.
And we're looking for new jobs, looking for what's left of the industry, and what to do next.
And we're looking at all of it. So if you're a fellow laid off journalist, a working journalist, or someone who admires the craft, we're looking to build community.
Develop new skills, and try to figure out what just happened.
Welcome to Laid Off and Looking. Yeah, like I don't know. Here's the thing, because do if you and you would know more about this with Marvel timelines than I would, but
Mhm.
if you restart, if you jump back into a timeline, that's what you said, right?
If you jump back to try and change something, yes.
So are
Are you
you
talking
able to take what you know now? Because that's always been one of my things is I would totally do it over again, but I need to be able to take what I know now.
yes, but it changes the future of the time. You know what I mean? Like it changes the
Well,
timeline
yeah,
then.
that's 100% the plan.
Yeah. You're like,
We're trying to
well,
fix
are
this
you
shit now, so I'll go back, but I need to take what I know.
it it you always get screwed though, I find. Well, not
Oh.
always. You usually get screwed somehow. It's like the time it, it always balances out if you
This
get
is
the
giving
reasoning
like
to
some sort of like parable situation.
it
Like
does.
it's
It's like you think you're going to save somebody and you do, but then you lose somebody else. It's like, or you lose yourself. Like it's like
oh,
there's always a balance to it all. The universe balances everything out.
real. Well, then there better be a huge payoff for us because God.
I just want to skip certain things. I'm like, can we just skip ahead? I don't
That's
want to
like a
live
whole
through this.
TikTok sound. Like, can we skip to the good part?
Oh, there's a age. Yeah, can we skip to the
Yeah.
na, na, na.
Who does that? I have no
Uh,
idea.
they're on my running list. Do you want me to tell you?
Oh, I'm just out
It's
of
on my
random.
running list. It's literally on my running. I have my running list is one of many eclectic songs. I think it's AJR or AJ. I'm bad with names of
Listen,
groups I
I'm
don't know about.
terrible because at this point, TikTok has become my radio, except unlike with FM radio from like back in the 1900s from when we were kids, I have no idea who any of these artists are. I just recognize this like the bars or the hooks from their songs.
It's so funny. I don't really try to think how many like there's some things that I listen to on TikTok, but mostly for me it's always on Spotify. Oh, the good part, AJR.
Okay. I'll take your word for it.
Oh, stop that before it goes on air.
Oh my God.
Um, but yeah, I do. I want to skip to the good part. I want
Yeah.
no, I just want well, yeah. Actually, I'm gonna be very specific. I want to skip to the good part and not just to anywhere.
Yes, no, I
There's a lot
definitely
going
want to skip
on.
to the good part. Yeah, well, speaking of a lot going on, um, because I mean, again, we don't officially have jobs right now,
Right.
and we definitely are working on a lot of stuff, but at the same time, we're also still, dealing with the demands of our lives. And I guess I feel like understanding your work-life balance and the importance of that is an ongoing thing. And I know for me, it's something that has definitely evolved. I feel like for a lot of people, the pandemic really like jump started that, like, no, this is something you need to take seriously. And but even still, in like, getting this podcast together and getting that off the ground and, freelancing here and there, and it doesn't feel like everywhere, but sometimes it does. And just all of the ands. And then, of course, like making sure that I'm showing up as much as I can and being present for my family um, is work. And I still struggle with that balance.
Yeah, I think because it's been so ingrained in us
It
to
really has.
put work first. And I think there's still a lot of people in um who run certain corporations and businesses who uh expect that still. And I think
Oh,
a lot of
CEOs benefit from
yeah,
us workers having zero
I mean,
boundaries.
listen, I don't even know. I see it on whether it's on LinkedIn or other social. You see certain CEOs or certain bosses who kind of feel like it should be, you know, it, work should be focused on and first, and you should be available all hours. And, that's why if you're getting paid well, and for me, that also depends. Like when we work in an industry where a lot of our time actually is not actually compensated as well as you would think when you
Oh,
look at the
no.
amount of work you put into it. When you're working, when you're kind of on call 24/7,
Yeah.
you are have to be available at all hours, and that balance just isn't there for many journalists. It's like your life is your job. And I think figuring out that's what makes the burnout so, you know, real for us. That's what
Intense
makes
and like I mean, when a journalist burns out, done. We're talking like laid out on the floor, like I forgot to eat 3 meals today, done.
and and then you forget about your own value too. The value you
Hmm.
have for your family. I mean, for me, that's always been an issue. Like I've always had, as often as I will be like, well, I'm gonna do better right now. I'm gonna get better at, carving out time to be, but it's so difficult to do that sometimes when you work in this field because breaking news happens. Even when you're not a breaking news show, it can still affect it, especially over the past, like, maybe 8 years or so, even more so. It's gotten to the point where you are so devoted to something, so it changes the content that you just
I was gonna
reported.
say, yeah, it changes the conversation with everything.
And that to me, so it goes back to this whole question of how do you as a journalist, because it's different. That's what we've both worked in or worked in television. You always, I mean, there have been plenty of birthdays, there have been plenty of, birthday parties, there's been plenty of celebrations that, you have to miss. And finding that balance of, I don't want to do that anymore, or of changing that is really important. And I think for a lot of people going into this field, it's really important to have that balance. Um, I haven't done the greatest job in the past, but I've definitely tried to get better with it, or I'm trying to. Even like you said, even the fact that we're not, listen, even being laid off and working on doing this and life happens, other stuff doesn't
Yeah.
stop. I keep telling
No.
people, I'm like, I can life just give me, can we just put a pause right now and can I just deal with this? But it doesn't. There's always something different, whether it's health, whether it's family stuff that pops up, but it does seem to like come in and it just, it pulls you away. And sometimes that pulling away is important though, and listening to it is
Yeah.
important.
No, I totally agree with that. In fact, my thing, it's not even just like the events that I've missed. It's even in the casual moments of just hanging out with somebody, like a family
Mhm.
member or friends, where they're, and it still is a thing. I struggle to be completely present because like my phone is always on my person, and my fear is that like, oh my god, something that like I really need to know could happen in that moment. And I like, okay, again, freelancing is so much different than we were warned, I want to say, by the way. Caitlin definitely warned us in the cost of freelancing episode. Um, and I don't think I fully, and so did Sonia, by the way, and I don't think I fully grasped until, yeah. But anyway, so I do struggle to be present in
Yeah.
just casual moments with people.
But
You know,
but Jenna, don't you feel though that's I mean, I feel like that's everybody now. There was I remember a while back,
that's a good point.
where 60 Minutes had done some report. This is ages ago because I didn't watch 60 Minutes. So it was like one of those things I remember popping up on TV. So this goes back maybe 20 or something years ago, but I was working at cable news and I remember having always like back then, be it my cell phone, getting text messages or a pager, or a BlackBerry, I should say,
Oh,
a
yeah.
BlackBerry. It
Yep.
was the BlackBerry. I remember it was, and I mean, that was there. You got your BlackBerry and it could go off at any hour, middle of the night, and we all had to be prepared to get up and go to work or whatever if there was some news that broke. Um, and I remember 60 Minutes at a report about how they were talking to everyday people who didn't work in this field. They were just on a regular, and how more and more they noticed people were getting work was like kind of slipping into their personal time. Like, oh, 8 o'clock at night. Hey, by the way, that report, did you ever get that to me? Or can I get that? And people were talking about how they would felt like it was infringing on their personal time. And I think like that's happened more so. It's because of whether it was phones, cell phones, whether it was because of pagers and Blackberries and now social media, everybody feels like they're on. Like I notice everybody had like what you were saying about having a cell phone on your like while you're out and you're sitting there with your friends and you put it on the table.
Mm-hmm. I
All my
try to
friends
put
do.
it down, but I swear to God,
Oh
if it
yeah.
buzzes, it's going to be
Oh,
everything in me to be like, don't check, don't
but
check.
so
Just
many of
one
my
second, just 1 second.
but so many of my friends do that when we all hang out. So my family have their phones out or they have it on them and then when it goes off they check because they're looking for, oh, I have to check this out first. And that to me gets to be really, and I get it. Some jobs require it more than others,
Mhm.
but I do think like even with that, um, you just it's so difficult to get. And it's not a question of getting out of it. It's just getting, like you said before, about this balance so that you actually can engage in a conversation and be present and not feel like this is now what you're gonna like listen to. It's like, oh wait, hold on 1 second, because then you're not really listening. You're not being
Exactly,
present.
exactly. And I've been on the receiving end of that where like somebody is like, I that that gesture with the one finger because they're typing or and
Yeah.
then people I hate that. I hate that. Like honestly, like so I do try to be conscious of that because like I didn't really go through what was it like I guess when texting started and all of the stuff like I wasn't that like involved in it nor did I really care. Um but somehow or another that evolved and the bug got me as well. And yeah, so it's making sure putting more of an effort into the balance. The one thing that I will say, and I know that, well, I don't know if we've talked that much about, like the fact that we are still working on this podcast behind the scenes while we're doing these short and summer episodes, but there have been more than a few instances where I have sent you emails at, let's say, after business hours times, and I don't expect a response back. It's just more so that I can make sure that I've let you know here's some of the
Hmm.
work that's been done.
Hmm.
Um so in that respect, I hope that's not bothersome. But that's literally all it is for me. It's not like oh my God, what do you think? It's more just like, hey, these three or four things finally got completed or whatever. When you get a chance, take a look at them. Here's where you can find them.
I think what I've listened when we tape this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I put my phone on do not disturb. What I've learned is to A, do that, to enjoy the do not disturb. Um, to also check, I mean, I can't help it. Something goes off. I'm the person who looks at my phone right away.
Yeah,
It's how I've lived for so much of my life, right? It's like it goes up, oh, got to check it out. But what I have realized is that I don't always have to do that. I'm trying to get better at that. And I also know that if it's something super important, you'd reach out to me. You'd either calling is like Oh, whoa. When people
Calling is
call
like a big
sometimes,
deal.
I'm like, what's happening? Something big. I swear, I get nervous sometimes when somebody calls. I'm like, it's unless it's like I know, like for me, like I have certain people in my life who I do talk to. Um, it's like, but it's very small group of people.
Hmm.
It's usually text. So when, let's say, if you call me, and I know we talk, but a lot of times we communicate via text or like I said, email. But if you call, I'm like, what's going on, Jenna? What's happening right now? So for that's the thing. I realize if it's something super important, there's a way of, and same thing for me too. If it's something that you find a way of letting the person know,
Yeah.
but
I
you
find
do
that
want,
happening more and more often is that like I'll communicate with people via text and then I'll be like, "Do you have a minute for a call?"
yes,
It's almost as
yes.
just like, "Is it okay if I
I,
call
I'm
you?"
always, well, because sometimes listen, we like things locked down. We want to know whether it's booking a guest or an idea or something. Sometimes you just want the instantaneous, like, I can't wait that long. I can't, it's been
Oh,
5 minutes.
totally.
I want an
Totally.
answer now.
Literally. So and that does happen. That does happen. Um, but I'm also wondering, and I guess this is also for me, and this is something that I've been again struggling with. I feel like it's a 90s thing, this hustle harder culture, or maybe it like was the 90s and the aughts. I don't remember because by then in the aughts I was on my hustle and was just like making myself crazy and in some cases
Mhm.
sick, trying to hustle harder and sleep when you're dead and all of that really toxic shit that I ingested as a young journalist. And but now that I'm back in this freelancing bubble, I feel that creeping back in again. We're just like, if you got time to sit down and chillax, then you got time that's time you could be working. Time's like money, if you're not working on it, somebody else is. So if you want to get this done, if you want to get this off the ground, you better get on it. Da, 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 da. And I mean, I think there is use for that because, like there are things that need to get done and there are even if there's self-imposed deadlines, and I've definitely learned as a journalist that like I respond to deadlines very well.
Yeah.
I don't give me an assignment with no deadline because my subconscious will be like, "Oh, you just didn't really want this done."
Ah.
But exact no, literally, that's exactly what my subconscious will be like is, "Oh, you weren't really serious. There's no deadline. I'll just do it whenever," which is never. That's fine. But so there are times when, like buckle down and really focus and get work done is important, but you just can't live at that level.
Yeah, I don't think it's sustainable. I think
I think
that's,
Sam tried to warn us about that.
yeah,
Samantha Raglan?
yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that like you can't live at the fight or flight level all the
but
time. And
I
I
think
sat
that's
there
the
and was
thing.
like, yeah, and then kept doing it. It's a hard habit to break.
Well, because it's also ingrained on what we see every day when we go online or you go and you're checking stuff out. And, I think it's also different when you're working from, if you're laid off or if you work from home, you kind of get put in this bubble where you don't see how everybody else is working at different paces too sometimes. So when you're alone, you kind of can be harder on yourself in terms of, I've got to keep at this pace. This is the way it's like, and it's like, no, you know, there has to be, like you said before, having deadlines and having some kind of idea is important. Same thing for me too. But at the same point, when you don't have anybody else to judge off of what's going on, other than maybe when we check in or other people too, but even
Mm-hmm.
that throws it off. Like you got to have that constant reminder. I think being around people sometimes helps that a little bit too. Oftentimes, I think when we do social and stuff, it is a solo activity, and therefore it can be something that people lose track of their own oh, wait a minute. I've been hustling for way too long now, and I've been so focused on this, and I haven't been really paying attention to the fact that I can take a break at this point and chill a little bit and have a
Yeah.
conversation with somebody or do take care of some of my own shit and not have to worry about it.
I guess I can kind of like because if I'm engaged with somebody else, especially if it's over dinner, FYI to anybody who knows me and listening to this, you can always buy me dinner. I will completely disengage from the world and be present when there's food
Wait,
and wine involved.
is it them buying you dinner versus going
No, you don't
Dutch.
have to buy me dinner. I'm not destitute, but
That,
but the point is that something about a plate of food and a glass of wine,
oh
and for
yeah,
some reason that allows me to like just shut out the outside world, and then I can be completely engaged with the person across the table.
I I agree. I think it's yeah, I don't know. I'm very I really am trying to I feel like I have become more mindful of that and I appreciate the hustle culture. I just what I don't appreciate is this sense of losing oneself and losing all your relationships to just be about, pages, getting emails or getting text messages or getting alerts to things. And it's like I remember when we were working, I still have a few alerts from like certain news media on, but I love the fact now there are some of my friends who are breaking news for me. Like they're like, "Hey, did you see this happen?" I'm like, "It did?"
Oh, that's the beautiful thing is that like for the last few big breaking news moments, let's see, former President Trump getting shot, Biden dropping out of the Democratic race for president as the presumptive nominee for the Democrats. Both of those were things where friends of mine who aren't even journalists were just like, "Oh my God, Jenna, did you know this?" And I looked at my phone and I was like, "I did not." That was
Well,
actually a huge victory.
I felt working on a news show, there was a period of time where, and I still feel to this day, it still happens. Like if the amount of alerts I got for Donald were stories regarding Donald were would just be overwhelming. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, after all, I'm like, enough. I can't keep hearing, I can't keep getting these messages. It's too much. Some of it's just done, I believe, just to get attention, of course. Um, but I, the amount of news that you get can be just overwhelming. And I think a lot of people sometimes need to, and that,
I've heard
yes,
that
we
for
work.
just lay people. My God, I've heard that for
Ever,
civilians. No, I've heard that for people who don't work in journalism too. That
yes.
everybody is just like, it's just too much, which used to kind of blow me away that, I knew so many people who were just like, yeah, I just don't pay attention to the news. And were like
Which
very
is
firm on
dangerous.
that. Yeah,
Which
because I
is
would always be like, dude, that's kind of how we got in this
yeah,
problem in the first place.
yes, yes. I mean, that's the thing. It's like there is the balance. Like I will look. I'm just not attached to it to have to find out at that very second. It doesn't. That's one thing that I ended up realizing is a lot of things don't change necessarily. You don't find out at that very moment. If you wait an hour or 2 hours, it's the same news.
Exactly.
We're on this cycle of constantly feeling like if you're not at that very second know what's happening, then you are behind. And that's what I think a lot of us just have to lose. And that goes for everything. It's news, but it's also even on social, how stories change. People follow certain trends or beefs that are going on. And they're like, "Oh, did you see this?" And it's like, relax. It's going to still be there. I can guarantee you the world has not changed all that much.
Yeah, yeah, which is very, very true. I mean, there's still a part of my brain from having
Yeah.
produced live radio that is just like, oh my God, breaking news.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, what would happen for the next 2, sometimes 3 hours? It would just be us being like, hey, what do you think about the breaking news?
Yes. Yes.
Like that's all
That,
it is
that
because
I
nothing else has forwarded the story yet.
I always remember between when I worked in cable news, it was like one of those things where there were so many stories that would happen, especially on the it would seem like because I worked on like a weekend shift
Mhm.
and there would always be something breaking on the weekends. I'm like, does everything have to break on the weekend? Because that's
Oh, that was
sometimes
my biggest beef was
uh
like the morning people, the people who did the morning show would always get all of this extra training on like, how to handle breaking news, whatever. And I'd be sitting there because I produce the afternoon show and I'd be like, do you understand damn near everything collapses on my shift?
yeah.
The world falls apart in the afternoon. But I guess maybe the thinking was that because 9/11 happened in the morning, and I'm like, that was a fluke in so many different ways that we should just focus on making sure that morning crews are ready for breaking news situations. And I'm like, no, dude, I come in at noon and it's just a shit show all the way down.
Oh, well, the morning is very briefly worked, um, just for a few months because I couldn't take it, on a morning show. And that was,
That's what people don't get. Those shifts will eat you
oh,
alive.
I remember having to be there. It was like what, 1:30 or 2 in the morning. And then the whole deal was, oh no, you clock out at like 11 o'clock or 12. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with it. Because usually you end up getting, once that's done, I remember then having to work on the story for the next day that I'm supposed to be producing and booking. And then that somebody cancels, well, that's your segment now. Like you have to replace that. There's been a breaking part of the story. You get an email, hey, by the way, could your guest handle this? And you're at home and you're like, it's 4 o'clock, dude. Like, no, it's there's a lot that goes into that. It's really tough to have what's
No,
going on,
sorry. A
Jenna.
bug flew in front of
People
my
don't
face.
know this
Okay.
who
People
are not
listening
watching.
are not
Yes.
gonna like even notice, but I moved back and was like, what the fuck? Because like a little gnat or something flew in front of my
It
face.
was funny because the way you were waving, I was like, does Jenna smell something? That she's
No,
like, what's
because
going
it
on?
was a
And
bug.
like, and that's why I was like, I had to ask. I'm like, are you okay? Okay. But yeah, the balance within, and we're talking of course about radio and broadcast, which are
Yeah,
different. Um, I never worked in print.
neither have
Um,
I.
yeah, I've never worked in print, so I don't know how that works for print, but definitely for broadcast, which is my career, it was, we worked week, please, whenever there was a hurricane,
A
whenever
snowstorm.
it it was a snowstorm, a hurricane, some kind of like weather related thing or politics, if there was some kind of, or if a well-known person had died, all of a sudden it was like we're doing round the clock coverage. Like, and I recall, like you were saying before, there were so many times it was after the storm. I'm like, the storm hit and it's gone. And I get it. It's important people know the news, but when you're talking about, there just become a certain point where you're just vamping and you're really not giving any information. Not really. I mean, people say this, oh, well, we're putting up numbers, but it's, we're a national. I think it depends also. Like I'm talking about national cable news as opposed to, local.
Yeah.
So really
My
you're
career's
just,
been in local, whereas you've had national experience.
yeah. So it's just after a while, it's exhausting because you're just like, I'm not really saying that much. We're just, having generic people come on. It's like, yeah, we were lucky. Everything went okay. And we're like, we have 2 more hours of this. I'm
Oh my
glad everything went
God.
okay. But seriously, now we're just vamping.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're vamping.
Balance.
Yeah, exactly. Balance. Um, it's just I think the important thing is if we're vamping, we have good vampers.
They, that's true
Not
too.
everybody, listen, not everybody has the skills to tap dance. There's
That's true.
nothing worse than like on-air talent that's just like, you want me to say something?
Yeah, but I think that's happening a lot more though. I think oftentimes, so many things are dragged out because it's more speculation than it is actual information. And I think there's a
Oh my
difference between
God,
that too.
that is like sometimes I'll see that sliding into coverage and
Right.
content, and that is a pet peeve of mine
So we don't know
because
Yeah.
yeah, you're just feeding into like, conspiracy theories or whatever and blah blah blah.
Right.
But again, that's something else though, because the public has also been trained by people working in news media to expect um, you know, updates for lack of a better description or new updates. And when there's nothing there, and then you bring on, people to talk and speculate, and there's literally nothing really to speculate about, to me it's always given air or breathing room for conspiracy theories to
Mhm.
start to take hold.
Mhm.
And that's become another problem in our body, definitely in our body politic. But I think just in general, there's a lot of stuff that people are
Well,
quick to be
it-
like,
it's a,
oh,
it's a, you mentioned like this is what people expect, but it's one of those things where I do think it comes back to like which came first, the chicken or the egg.
well, there was a
Cable
time when I
news,
don't think people did expect that. I think it's like we fed into it.
cable news really, I think, is what fed into it because there's this sense of you need this information. You need to know 24 hours what's happening in the world. And then people start expecting it. And then, of course, the ratings are there, right? I mean, if
Hmm.
there were no ratings, people would not be doing this. They would not be doing that. They would not be doing reports at 2, 3 in the morning, or they wouldn't be doing this type of need of having to expand. I mean, it's again, there's a difference between giving information and then just saying, well, this didn't happen, but if it did, what would you say to that? It's like, why are we talking about this? Like, what's the purpose of that?
Yeah.
It's one thing if it's opinion, but it's another thing if you're trying to come across as actual news. It's
Well,
entertainment then,
one
you
thing I
know?
can say is that while we are in the process of, streamlining our operations and et cetera,
Hmm.
and booking people, oh, we're going to talk to somebody about this. Somebody is going to explain to me how we got here.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, Dom, it's always a pleasure to check in with you.
Great
And
checking with you too, Jenna.
yes, glad you're on this journey with me because I definitely could not do this
Oh,
alone.
and we did want to say we were going to talk about work.
Oh, right. I almost forgot. Good. Thank you. So we have made an executive decision, just the two of us, that we are going to return with our full episodes, with interviews, etc. And we're going to do that on which day was it again,
September
Dom?
6th. September
September
6th.
6th. Yes, because we were thinking of the end of August, and then it quickly dawned on us, yeah, vacation and just like I can and not feeling it. And that's just the end of August
And
was
Labor
in
Day,
Labor Day.
everybody's gone. Yeah.
Not a good time. So we're gonna come back September 6th. Um, I guess, yeah, have to make sure
With
that
our
we make regular
regular
shows.
shows. Yeah.
And yeah, we've got a lot lined up and a lot planned, and I think it's gonna be really interesting and fun to listen to. Or watch if you're watching us on YouTube.
Righty.
All
All right,
right.
Jenna. Well, great
Bye,
seeing you.
everybody.
Take care.
Laid Off and Looking is an independent podcast conceived of and created by Jenna Flanagan and Dominic Camia. Music provided by Jay Cowett, research by Lori Ruthenbucker. Reach out to us anytime at laidofandlookingpod@gmail.com. New episodes drop every Friday at noon.